Hello, so I'm back again, fairly quick on the back of the other videos. The reason for that is I've been listening to, looking at all your comments, and they're fairly overwhelming. I look at every one and read them all, and the length of them, again, like I said before, is it's quite astonishing that you've obviously got lots to say. So when I start looking at the comments and reading them, it gets me thinking as to what the problems are. And gets me kind of my brain ticking over, and I started thinking, well, what is the actual core problem then? Who has got the issue? Well, now we have the issue as a dealer, because we're looking after you as the consumer, and we're kind of in the middle between the consumer and the manufacturer. But essentially, it's your money, it's your hobby. Yes, we're earning a living out of it, but there's not going to be a living to earn if the manufacturers are producing things that you don't want to buy, and you end up giving up caravanning. It's been really sad, the amount of people that have been on the comments saying that I'm fed up with it and I'm actually giving up, or the fact that they were, I mean, I'm maybe partly to blame on this, is because videos like mine and others are saying that these caravans have issues. They've been put off from actually buying a caravan in the first place. That's the last thing we want to happen. Like I said before, we'll end up having no industry. So it got me thinking. We've been saying about the manufacturers that they're not building the quality of the caravans that they should be, and that we're frustrated with it. And that's been the overwhelming theme of these comments, that people keep saying, yeah, look, we're not happy with the build quality, I don't want to buy it anymore, because we just end up on the side of on the caravan site with nothing working, and we got leaks coming in, and we spend most of our time trying to work out how to fix the warranty issues, and then we're not even talking about when they've fallen out of the warranty loop, and then the owners have to start actually paying for them. That's going to be the next problem that we're going to start seeing, and we already have started to see that actually. So then I thought, well, okay, is it all the manufacturer's fault? And I didn't know whether I'd dare do a video like this, but I thought, can some of the blame be put at the owners of the caravan's fault door? And can we say, look, are you asking too much of the manufacturers, in the fact that we want all the different stuff that we've got in all these new caravans now, and we want it at a certain price, and we want it at a certain weight? Now, again, that's a bit of a brave question to ask, but the reason I got thinking about it was actually I was watching Bullseye last night, because I didn't want to watch the football or the politics, and then unfortunately the people at the end didn't win, so they didn't get the 101 with 6 darts. And then Jim Bowen goes, oh, look what we could have won. So then this caravan turns around, and then I see this CI caravan sat there, and I think, God, look at that, it's all shiny, it looks great. And then I looked at it and I thought, it's got a old steel B&B chassis, it's got glass windows, it's got a foot pump to pump the water up to a single tap. It's got no heating system as such, a little gas heater. It's very basic. But that's what the customers had at the time, and that's all there was. There were 3 layouts. There was a 2-berth, well, 2 layouts probably, a 2-berth, and then one with a side dinette with a kitchen at the back, and I think that's about it. So then fast forward, it was that early 80s. So fast forward that to now, and look at what we've got. We've got the elegancies, and we've got the top of the range stuff, knocking 55, 60,000 pounds, and it's got all the mod cons that we expect to have at home: tall fridge freezers, Aldi heating systems, grade 3 insulation. It looks like this, whereas it looks like a house rather than it being a kind of a glorified tent, which is what the old caravans used to be. Also, then I thought, well, why is that? Why do we need all this stuff? Now, okay, so maybe our caravaning ways have changed. So back then, when you had that CI, you couldn't use it past September, October time, when it started to get cold, because there was no heating and the wind would whistle through it. So maybe the ways we use in the caravans have changed. So we want to extend that period of time into the winter and beyond that. So that might be the fact that we're using the caravans more. It wasn't just designed for a 2-week holiday in August and then you put it away and that was it. So that's obviously, there's been an evolution from those early days right through to where we are now, and you can see the different stages of how it actually came about. So if we don't go back as far as that CI, because that's probably going a little bit back too far, but like I said in the last video, I've got a Compass Corona there that I've bought second hand, and it all works, and it's dry. And so I thought, well, what does that Caravan do different to what I'm sat in now with with all this stuff? And essentially, what does it do? It cools your milk down, it heats the water up for some washing up. You can have a shower in it, and you can sleep in it, and you can cook in it. That's the things that we want a Caravan to be able to do, and that's what this does as well. This doesn't do much more than that. It does it with a little bit more comfort. I think that's probably the only thing. So just an offside there. It's fit for purpose. If you can do those 5 things in it, it is fit for purpose. I did have someone, it annoys me, fit for purpose. I had someone say, oh, their spark generator in their cooker isn't working, so the van's not fit for purpose. Well, it is. It's just use and match. So that does frustrate me a little bit. But I do I do get where people are coming from, and it is frustrating when things don't work. But if we look back to that Compass Corona, what is it about that you wouldn't buy now? So it's a 5-berth. Back then again, we only had a few layouts. You had a 5-berth, a 2-berth, and then a 4-berth with a side dinette. So the manufacturers could really concentrate on only 3 layouts. The market was bigger because the Caravans were less relatively and more affordable for more people. What's happened with the manufacturers' pricing now, and it's not technically their fault, I would say. Obviously they've got external sources. I mean, you can imagine what our electricity bill's gone up to. Everyone's had the same thing. You can imagine what a factory is overnight. One day it was X amount, and the next day it's probably £2 or £3 million more money because the cost of electric's gone up. So all the external issues they've got pushing the prices up, import tax from Germany for all the bits that we use in the Caravans, whatever it happens to be, the prices are going up. And as the prices go up, the availability to the normal customer, the more masses, goes down. And that's what's happened to me. When I first started, a new Caravan was £12,000 or £13,000, and I would sell quite a few. And as the price of that's gone up, my customers gone down to the point where actually this year I don't do new, because I can't sell to the kind of customer that I've got down here in Cornwall. I just can't sell that kind of level of cost of Caravan to them. So it's got to that tipping point where it's not worth me selling them, and that's what's happened. So would we buy that Caravan with that level of kit in it now? And the answer is probably no. I'll talk about that a bit later. There was a kind of a test case that they did a while ago that we can have a little look at and see what happened there when less stuff was put in the Caravans. So again, there was less layouts. The kit that was in that Compass does dictate the layout. Once we went to the combi boilers and things like that, it freed up some area that you could start putting different layouts in the same size box of the Caravan. The materials got a bit lighter, so they weren't kind of so heavy on the chassis, so they can make them a little bit longer and go to the full length of the Caravan without the weight going through the roof. And I think that's the key. Again, like I keep saying, we've got a price point, we've got a weight point that we've got to hit, and the manufacturers are trying to keep the prices where it is feasible for people to buy it, but they're getting pressures from below where they have to keep putting these things up. So if you look at where it was then and where we are now, it comes back to this question: are we asking too much of the manufacturers? Do we want touchscreen this and touchscreen that? Do we need our fridge to be able to know what input it's getting, so that when the 240s go on, the gas kicks in? All these things are really handy to have, but what cost is it? Are the manufacturers putting too much effort into getting those things right, and then having to kind of not do so much work on the rest of it, so that the actual finish of the Caravan isn't so good? Now imagine if you took out an Aldi heating system, and let's face it, who actually really needs an Aldi heating system? It's designed for Scandinavia, it's designed for going over into the mountains and going skiing at -20. If we pack our Caravans up in the end of October, do we really need that Audi heating system? You know, it is nice and it is comfortable, but when you actually think about it, there's not many times in the UK when it's actually really viable. Especially when the old heating systems were fine, it would warm the Caravan up, not a problem at all. So imagine taking that Audi heating system out. So you've got the cost of it, which I don't know whatever they pay for it. It's going to be £2.5 grand, I would have thought. Then you've got, you know, the infrastructure of building it as well. So there's the labour of actually putting that thing in. You have to build everything around it. So there's extra, you know, design has to go into actually putting those things in. Say, for instance, you took the Audi heating system out and put an older heating system in. Could they then save that money and then put that money towards the build of the actual Caravan itself and making it more reliable, making it more robust? If you put a simpler system in, it's less to go wrong. Not the Audi goes wrong too often, they're pretty good. So that's the kind of thing I'm asking. Are we able to go to the manufacturers and say, look, actually, we'd rather have a Caravan that is reliable and we don't have water ingress coming in it, and we're not spending half our year trying to fight with the dealer and with the manufacturer to get things done. Then we have to take it in and we don't get our Caravans back for months. All the stuff that we get problems with through the warranty process. If we didn't have any of that, we could be out caravanning more and our lives would be a lot better, at the cost of maybe not having such a good heating system or a simpler fridge, for instance, and not having the CAN bus systems and all that kind of thing. Now, I don't suspect for an instance that we can go backwards in doing that. And I think if we really asked ourselves the question, it would be, no, I don't want to go back to that. I do want this stuff. And then the next question is, well, maybe, you know, the manufacturers are trying to chase this holy grail of obtaining the perfect Caravan with all the stuff that we want, because we're putting pressure on them to get everything that we want in it. And they're trying to build something that, again, is to a price point and to a weight point, and to have all this kit in it and get everything up to, you know, to the quality that we're expecting and demanding of them as well. So it's kind of like the no thing. A friend of mine who runs his own business has got this thing where he can't say no to customers, and then he ends up doing too much, stretching himself. He's always forever too busy, and he can't do everything 100% right because he's under too much pressure. And I'm wondering if that is the same thing here, is that the manufacturers are under too much pressure to put all this kind of kit in it, and they're not spending the actual time on building the Caravans correctly in the first place. Now, some of that isn't our fault. It is the arms race. So you've got Swift who will put something in to kind of beat Bailey and Coachman and all the others. They're all trying to compete with each other for the same space. So they'll all start by putting something in at the top end, and then that will filter down through into the mid-range, like the Audi system. It's fairly standard in mid-range Caravans now, whereas it just used to be in high-end. So that's a case in point. So all these things that were added in to be a bonus, just to kind of tip in that year, to tip the buying public into there, then the next manufacturer will do the same thing the year after, and it all kind of filters down. So that's why we end up with, you know, an entry-level Caravan like the Sprite. It's not entry level anymore. It's you know, it's where the probably even where the Conqueror was probably 10 or 15 years ago. When you look at, you know, what the kind of kit they had in that, maybe not with the Audi system, but it's not far off. So the question is, have we been asked whether we want all this stuff or not? And what would the answer to that question be? Now, I don't know if it's just the way my way of thinking, but it seems to have got worse since 2014. But is that because that's when the social media started to kind of kick off from then, and it's been a lot easier for us all to talk to each other. And then once you start talking to each other, and once you start getting a few problems, that's when, you know, like big problems, that's when all the smaller problems come out as well. So has it got worse since, say, 2014, or has it always been there? And it's just the fact that we can talk to each other a bit more that's made it worse. But it does seem to be, again, when you look at the older Caravans, we didn't seem to have the same kind of problems as we do now. I'm fairly sure of that. So are our expectations too high? Are we expecting too much from the manufacturers to be able to produce everything we want? The first time I saw an example of expectations being too high was when I was selling Fleetwood back in 2004, 2005. They were easy to sell at the show because it was the most expensive vehicle in the hall, and you could tell the kind of people that just wanted the most expensive because they thought it was the best. So sold lots of them. Sold lots of them fairly easily, but soon found out that they were expensive, but it wasn't for the reasons that most people thought that it was. And they thought it was the most expensive because it was the best product out there. Turned out that it wasn't because of that. It was because they didn't have the economics of scale, so they couldn't buy in the same kind of numbers as Swift and Bailey. So they and the manufacturing process was a lot more expensive. Even where they were in the country, the wages were higher than in Bristol and up in Hull and things like that. So everything that they had to do to produce their caravans was more expensive. That's why the caravan was more expensive. And along came the kind of customer who wanted to just buy the most expensive thing, and they were a certain type of person that's used to a certain type of level. They were Mercedes owners and BMW owners and things like that, that the expectations of the product was through the roof. And then we'd hand it over, and however good we could do the PDI, it's not the same as a customer being in it for 24 hours. So I'd hand it over, and then the next day I'd see a customer sometimes walking up red-faced with a list in his hand, and there's me kind of getting in the neck for the product that wasn't very good. So soon worked out that that was the case, and the expectations of that type of customer weren't aligned with what the product could actually deliver. To the point where actually I was just sat in front of a customer and they wanted everything, the best awning, the best motor mover, absolutely everything. And I turned around and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, I can't sell you this caravan." And he looked at me a bit shocked because that's not what he expected to hear. And he said, "What do you mean you're not selling the caravan?" I said, "Well, your expectations of what this is going to do, I know for a fact this caravan isn't going to meet them. So I don't want to be the person to have to sell you that and then deal with the consequences afterwards. That's not what I'm about." So he went off in a bit of a huff, and I didn't think of anything of it for a day or so. And then back then I had a boss, and he called me into the office, and he'd had Richard from Fleetwood on the phone, and he'd said, "You've been telling people you're not selling them the product." I said, "No, I'm not." And then I said, "If you get him on the phone, I'll tell him exactly why." And that's what happened, and he couldn't really argue. And my boss at the time said, "Well, fair enough. If I was passing the issues on to him, and he was getting it as well. So we all agreed that actually I hadn't done the wrong thing, and that's where we were with it." And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, Fleetwood stopped trading. I don't think that was because of any issue. Just Andrew had said that they didn't want to trade with them anymore. Anyway, so that was the first time I saw the kind of expectation outstripping what the actual products can achieve. And I just wondered if maybe we're in that situation now, and we need to kind of back off the manufacturers a little bit and give them a bit of a break, and not keep going on about everything that we want. But like I said, it may be they were a part of that process by trying to cram everything in just to beat Bailey or Swift or whoever they're trying to beat. That might be they're part of the problem as well. Could we not, like I said before in the other video I did, lose the sunroof? As soon as you lose that sunroof, that's 50% of the issues gone overnight. There wouldn't be anyone on the forum saying I got a leaky sunroof, because there isn't any. But would you then buy the caravan if it didn't have that? Are you saying, look, I really do want that sunroof, I just want the manufacturers to fix it and get it right, and can they actually achieve that? So that's the question I'm asking here. To answer the question, would you be happy with a caravan with less kit in it? The manufacturers did try and do this. Swift, a number of years ago, I think we brought out the Freedom. They reacted to a lot of customers saying, "Look, I don't want a shower in it, and I don't want a gas oven, I don't want any gas in it. We just want 240 and no shower and things like that." So they built it, and then of course didn't sell. The same people that were saying that thing, you'd say, "Right, okay, we've made this product, here you are, do you want to put a deposit on it?" "No, I think I'll buy the one with the shower in it and with the gas hob in it, because if I come and sell the caravan and it hasn't got those things, it's going to be difficult for me to sell. And also in the 6 years that I'm going to own it, there might be one time that I need to use the shower, so I don't want to be without a shower just in case." So that was what happened. They produced something on the back of what the customer had asked them to do, and it didn't sell, and they were a nightmare to sell. No one wanted them. So we don't want to be in that position again, where the customers are, you know, we all say, yeah, no, we don't want this, we don't want that, and then we make it, and then actually, no, we do want that, we do want this. So again, that is that's the question is that we can try and answer. Can we reduce the amount of kit and the expectations on the manufacturer to produce a better, longer lasting caravan that we don't get problems with? The manufacturers still aren't off the hook with the transparency thing. I think, like I said in a couple of videos ago, that the trusting needs to come up, and I think that's the transparency of what they're thinking and what's going on. That still needs to be there. But judging by the amount of comments that I've been getting and the theme of those comments, we're getting referring themes coming up, where people are saying that they don't want a caravan anymore because the products aren't right for them, and people going over to the European, German manufacturers and things and buying those caravans. We don't want that. That's not going to help anyone, because the market's shrinking as it is, and we don't want it to shrink to a point where it's not viable. The other thing I'm not liking is the similarities between what happened with Fleetwood, Avondale and Luna. Is the customer confidence dropped in those three manufacturers before they ceased to be. So, and it came from the kind of the dealers as well, because again, we didn't want to be have the issues that the manufacturers were giving us and then having to pass them on to the customer. So we were getting it in the neck for all their stuff. So that seems to be the similar theme to what's happening now, is the customer confidence has gone in the product, and the trust level has gone in the product. And that's what happened to Fleetwood, and it happened to Avondale, and it happened to Luna. And we could see it coming. We just knew it was going to happen like that. You can't sustain this kind of thing. Now, obviously, with the big kind of four, Swift, Bailey, Eldis and Coachman, they've got bigger machines behind them, so they're not small companies, they're big companies, so they should be able to weather that kind of storm. They're not so vulnerable as those other smaller companies are. But it still begs the question, you know, if customer confidence has gone through the floor and the trust level's gone through the floor, then what's going to happen, especially when the market's shrinking already? Is there going to be that point where they don't want to make any caravans anymore because it's not viable? So there doesn't seem to be an outlet for your frustrations, judging by the comments that I've got on these videos, which is interesting. So I wondered if there was something that could be done there. I've set up a Facebook account called Touring Caravan Issues. If you want to sign up to that and then just copy and paste what you've been putting in the comments into that forum, then I can, by the powers of AI and things, I can kind of get a bit of a database going and see who the biggest culprits are and what your issues actually are. I can just chuck it all through that and kind of get some data going on it to find out what's going on. So if you want to join that, just search for that, Touring Caravan Issues, join up to that and just give us your stories and tell us what you think. And then at least that'll be a small forum that you can go to, because it's, you know, you can talk about these things on other forums, but they have rules and regulations and things, so I haven't really gone down that route. So go for it, tell us what you think. I will then correlate those posts and see if I can do something with it. I don't know what I can do, but something has to be done. I mean, you know, it's no point, like I said, burying our head in the sand and just forgetting about it and just carrying on as normal, because that's not going to do anyone any good. So again, I've waffled on enough. If you can share this video, like it, subscribe, and then give me your comments on what you thought. This one is kind of throwing it back at you guys, so I might, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what you think of that. And it's just a question, is, you know, can we just back off the manufacturers a little bit and give them a break, and then try and get them back to building a better caravan with less stuff in it? I don't know, we'll see. Oh, next video, just wanted to tell you, no one's asked this before and no one's mentioned it, but I did have a Chinese company get in contact with me a few years ago, wanting to build caravans. That's quite an interesting story, so I'll do a little video on that next.